Are you a little bit of a people pleaser who has trouble saying no when you really don't want to do something? If so, this week's episode is for you. I'm Siobhan Barnes, founder of the Neon Life Society, and this week I'm going to talk to you about why you should stop being a people pleaser and how to start saying no. This topic is really near and dear to my heart because it's one of the areas I've really had to work on. I was the perennial people pleaser ever since I was a little girl. I didn't want to get quote unquote in trouble. I didn't want to get things wrong. And I always wanted to be on the right side of the line. So I was a very law abiding student and colleague and employee. And whilst that's an awesome thing, I think that sometimes you can overstep the mark to the point where you're giving too much, doing too much, and entering that really icky phase of martyrdom and resentment. You know, when you get to that place, people can feel it. So even though you say yes, they can tell by your attitude, they can tell by the way you're speaking, they can tell by your facial expressions, whether or not this is something you really want to do. It's like giving a gift. You can tell when somebody's giving it to you from heart. It's like, I thought of you and I got this for you, versus, oh, it's Christmas, I have to give you a gift. It's a very different feel. And so it's really important that when you say, yes, or you say no to someone, it comes from a place that feels good to you. So as I said, this is something that I've had to work on. And, as a result of building up this muscle, and it is like training a muscle, I'm feeling really confident in my relationships and my, workspace to be able to say, yes, this feels good, and no, that doesn't feel good. And it's super important, particularly as a mum with, millions of responsibilities and kids' obligations, etc. It's really important to set those boundaries. So how do you do that? And how do you say no without letting the other person down and becoming this awful, selfish person that, never does anything for anybody and only looks after themselves? Well, firstly, it's not going to be that extreme. If you are a people pleaser, my guess is there is no way that you can come across as a selfish person who doesn't want to help another. And I'm not suggesting that you become a mean person who doesn't care about others and only does things for themselves. No, what I'm suggesting is that you start to slowly cut back on those areas where you know that you say no. You say yes when you really mean no. So what do I mean? Say, for example, you have an opportunity to go for lunch with colleagues and you really just want to stay behind, use that hour to catch up on some work because that will just free your time and you can leave the office, at 6 p.m., which is when you want to get out of there. You might feel obligated to say yes because you don't want to let the team down. You want to be part of everything and you don't want to miss out. Well, it's important for you to make the decision to be at the lunch and really be there and enjoy it, or be at your desk and catch up on your work so you can leave on time. It's when you're in this limbo where you're not giving that activity your all, that's when it doesn't work. And we can all feel it, right? Like when you're at a lunch and you're distracted, you're checking your phone or your BlackBerry, your colleagues can tell. It's like there's no point that you should be there. So think about areas where you secretly just say yes as a default without even thinking about it, and start cultivating a response. So you can start with social activities because that's probably easier than telling your boss you can't do something. I realize that's not necessarily, possible right now, but you want to have something ready to go. So if someone asks you, hey, can I invite you to a dinner, or are you free for lunch, or are you free to help me at this, so such and such? Your default response that you can have ready to go is, I'd love to help you, or I'd love to come, but let me check and come back to you. It can really be as simple as that. Having something to go to so you don't have to think in the moment, just to spare you that time. So you don't say yes and then, a few hours later or a day later have to go back and say, oh, no, actually, I don't really want to be here. Which is just awkward and even worse, than, saying no in the first place. So that's my tip for you. Have a response. And I want to hear from you. Where do you people please? Where do you say yes when you really mean no? And what trips you up? Like, why do you do it? I'm really curious to hear from you. And leave a comment below and we can brainstorm a little bit on what your response can be, what to do with your particular situation. I would love to help you. Just remember that by saying no, you're actually saying yes to something else. So keep cultivating the courage, keep building that muscle to say yes to what you want and no to the things that don't serve you. In the meantime, I'm wishing you a beautiful week.